The rain had already begun to fall when Clara parked her car outside the restaurant. She sat there, hands trembling on the steering wheel, watching the raindrops race down the windshield. Inside, through the glass, she could see him, Ethan. Her ex smiling, waiting. Her phone buzzed. A message. "I'm inside. Can't wait to see you again." She hesitated. Her wedding ring caught the reflection of the dashboard light, shining like a warning. Clara's heart pounded. She whispered to herself, "It's just dinner, nothing more." But deep down, she knew that wasn't true. It had been months since Michael, her husband, really looked at her, really saw her. Every day felt like a repeat of the last, his late nights, her lonely dinners, the empty space between them growing wider. And now, one dinner with a man who once loved her felt like the only place she could still feel alive. She fixed her hair, took a deep breath, and reached for the door handle. But as she stepped out, something inside her screamed, "Don't go." Still, she went. Some mistakes don't start with lies or betrayal, they start with a moment of loneliness. The music fades, the camera pans toward the restaurant door slowly closing behind her. And the screen lingers on her wedding ring one last time. Have you ever missed someone from your past, not because you still loved them, but because they once made you feel alive? That's what Clara felt that night. A small piece of her heart whispered, what if? What if she had chosen differently? What if Ethan was the one she was meant to be with? But love doesn't die in one day, it fades quietly, and sometimes loneliness wears the face of temptation. Tell me, have you ever been in a moment that felt wrong, but felt right just for a second? Where your heart said yes but your conscience said no? If you've ever been torn between what's right and what feels right, this story will speak to your soul. Because tonight, Clara's choices will test the limits of love, loyalty, and forgiveness. Stay till the end, because what happens after that dinner will shock you. And it will remind you that even the smallest mistake can change everything. Speech balloon. If you believe love deserves second chances, tap the red heart hash button. Broken heart. If you've ever felt unseen in a relationship, leave a comment, I understand. Eyes. And if you're still watching, don't scroll. You'll want to see what happens when her husband finds out. Because sometimes, the person you think doesn't care, has been watching the whole time. Clara Parker lived in a quiet neighborhood in Portland, Oregon, where mornings smelled of coffee and rain. From the outside, her life looked perfect: a stable marriage, a modest home, and a husband who worked hard. But behind the calm, there was a silence that no one could hear. Her husband, Michael Parker, was a man who believed love was proven through responsibility. He left home before sunrise and came back after dark, too tired to talk, too distracted to notice how her smiles were fading. He wasn't cruel, just distant, buried under deadlines, emails, and the weight of providing. Clara, on the other hand, was a creative soul, a graphic designer who once filled the house with laughter, playlists, and little notes on the fridge. But now, she spent most evenings scrolling through her phone, staring at old pictures that reminded her of when she felt seen. That's when she found the message. Ethan Cole, her college ex-boyfriend. He had been her first real love, the one who knew her favorite songs, her secret dreams, and how to make her laugh without trying. He had moved away after graduation, chasing a career in New York. They hadn't spoken in years. His message was simple. Hey stranger, long time no see. How's life treating you? Clara smiled at the screen longer than she should have. It was harmless, she told herself. Just an old friend checking in. But loneliness doesn't need much room to grow. Soon, their chats turned into late-night talks, shared memories, and laughter that made her heart remember what comfort felt like. And that's where everything began to slip, quietly, invisibly, dangerously. Every story of betrayal begins with something that doesn't look like one. It was a Thursday evening when Clara finally agreed to meet Ethan. He had been asking for weeks, just coffee, just dinner, just one conversation for old time's sake. She had said no a dozen times, but that day, after another silent breakfast with Michael, she said yes. The restaurant was warm and low-lit, with soft jazz humming in the background. Ethan was already there when she walked in, same charming smile, same calm eyes. Time hadn't taken much from him, if anything, it had made him look more certain of himself. Clara Parker, he said, standing to greet her. The sound of her old name on his lips sent a wave through her. Wow, you look exactly the same. She laughed awkwardly. You've learned to lie better. They sat, ordered food, and for a moment it felt like no time had passed. They talked about college days, the concerts, the road trips, the late-night noodles. Each memory peeled back layers she thought she had buried long ago. Ethan leaned forward, voice softer now. So, are you happy, Clara? She froze. The question hung between them like smoke. She forced a smile. Of course. Married, stable, responsible husband. You know, the dream. But her voice didn't sound convincing, not even to herself. Ethan's eyes studied her. You don't sound happy. She looked down, tracing the edge of her napkin. I'm just tired, she whispered. Outside, the rain had started again, tapping softly against the glass. He reached across the table. Not touching her, but close enough for her to feel the warmth. Sometimes, he said, we mistake peace for happiness. That line struck her harder than it should have. For a second, she forgot the ring on her finger. They talked for hours about everything and nothing. When the waiter came to clear their table, she realized how late it was. Ethan smiled. It was really good seeing you again, Clara. She smiled back, her heart unsteady. As she turned to leave, he called after her. Maybe we can do this again sometime? Clara didn't answer. She just walked out into the rain, her thoughts louder than the thunder. She thought the danger had passed. But the truth was it had just begun. Days turned into weeks after that dinner, but the memory of Ethan didn't fade. It started with small things, a good morning text, a funny meme, a random check-in about her day. Each time her phone buzzed, her heart skipped. Michael barely noticed. He was buried in work again, leaving early, coming home late. When he did come home, the silence between them was louder than words. One evening, as Clara sat designing a project on her laptop, Ethan messaged her. Remember when we used to sit on the dorm roof and watch the stars? She smiled at the memory. Yeah. You used to talk about moving to New York and opening a studio. And you said you'd design my logo for free, he replied. She laughed out loud, something she hadn't done in months. Their chats became her escape. Ethan listened, understood, remembered things Michael had long forgotten. When she told him she felt invisible at home, he said, You deserve to be seen, Clara. You've always been light, you just forgot how to shine. Those words stayed with her. She began dressing better, wearing her hair down again, even wearing perfume she hadn't touched in a year. When Michael noticed, he said casually, You look nice. Anything special today? She replied quickly, Just work. But inside, her heart whispered Ethan's name. One Friday night, Ethan sent a message. Can I see you again? Just dinner, no pressure. Clara stared at the screen for a long time. Her pulse raced. She typed I shouldn't, then deleted it. She finally wrote, Okay, just dinner. That second dinner was different. There was more laughter, longer stares, and moments of silence that said what words couldn't. When their hands brushed accidentally, she didn't pull away immediately. After dinner, they walked outside. The city lights reflected on the wet pavement. Ethan looked at her and said softly, I missed you, Clara. She looked away. Don't say that. But her voice trembled. He stepped closer. I know you're married. I respect that. But I can't pretend seeing you doesn't make me wish things were different. Her heart thudded. She felt alive and ashamed all at once. Tears burned her eyes. We can't do this, she whispered. He nodded, but the look in his eyes said otherwise. When she drove home, she couldn't stop thinking about him. That night, as Michael slept beside her, she scrolled through old photos of Ethan. The guilt was heavy, but the loneliness was heavier. And in that quiet room, she told herself one small lie, it's not wrong if I don't act on it. She didn't realize that emotional cheating hurts just as deep because it starts from the heart, not the body. The air in Clara's home began to shift, quiet, tense, and heavy with secrets. Michael wasn't stupid. He could sense something was off, even if he couldn't name it yet. Clara smiled more often lately, but not at him. She guarded her phone like it was made of glass. Her laughter, once shared freely with him, now came from another voice on the other side of the screen. One night, as they sat eating dinner in silence, Michael said casually, "You've been smiling at your phone a lot lately. Should I be jealous?" Clara froze. "It's just work, Michael. Don't start." He smiled weakly. "Just asking." But his eyes told another story, one of doubt and growing distance. Later that night, when she went to shower, her phone buzzed. Michael glanced. A message popped up on the screen. "Ethan, can't stop thinking about tonight." Michael's stomach dropped. He didn't touch the phone, just stared at it, his pulse pounding. When Clara came back, she found him sitting at the edge of the bed, quiet. "What's wrong?" she asked. He looked up slowly. "Who's Ethan?" Her heart stopped. "He's just an old friend." Michael's voice broke a little. "You don't text old friends that someone shouldn't be jealous of." Tears welled up in her eyes. "It's not what you think." But even as she said it, she wasn't sure what it was. 4 days, tension filled the house. Every word turned into an argument, every silence into a wound. At work, Ethan noticed her distracted face. "He found out, didn't he?" She nodded weakly. "Clara, listen. Maybe you should just tell him the truth. That you haven't been happy for a long time." She looked up sharply. "That's not fair, Ethan. He's my husband." "Then why are you here with me?" he asked quietly. The question cut deep. She didn't answer. That night, Michael didn't come home. He texted her. "I need space." Those 3 words broke her completely. She sat in the dark living room, staring at the clock, realizing how far she'd gone. It wasn't physical, but emotionally, she had crossed a line. Her mind raced. Was this love? Or just loneliness wearing a familiar face? Then, a week later, Ethan showed up at her office. "You don't have to stay in a broken marriage," he said softly. "You could start over." For a moment, his words sounded like peace. But when she saw Michael's picture on her desk, the photo from their wedding, his eyes full of love, her chest tightened. She turned to Ethan and whispered, "I made a mistake. You shouldn't have come." Ethan's face fell. "So this is it?" She nodded. "It has to be." When she got home that night, Michael was there, sitting in the dark, waiting. His eyes were red, his voice cold. "I saw you with him." She couldn't breathe. "It's not what you think." "Then what is it, Clara?" he snapped. "Tell me how dinners and secret texts mean nothing. Tell me how a married woman lets another man say he misses her and it's okay." Tears streamed down her face. "I didn't mean to hurt you." "But you did." He walked away, leaving her in tears, the echo of the door slam sealing her guilt. Sometimes, love doesn't die because of betrayal. It dies because one person stopped feeling seen and the other stopped looking. The following weeks were torture for Clara. Michael moved out temporarily, saying he needed space to think. The house felt like a graveyard, every photo frame a reminder of what once was. Her mornings were filled with regret, her nights with silence. She stopped hearing from Ethan too. He must have realized he had already done enough damage. One evening, as rain beat softly against the window, Clara sat on the floor of the living room, clutching her wedding ring. She whispered to herself, "How did I let it get this far?" The guilt ate at her. Every message, every dinner, every lie she told replayed like a movie she couldn't stop watching. Then came the call. It was Michael's sister, her voice shaking. "Clara. Michael's been in an accident." Her heart stopped. The phone slipped from her hand. She ran barefoot, rain pouring, tears mixing with the storm. When she arrived at the hospital, she saw him through the glass window, pale, unconscious, tubes running from his body. The nurse said he was lucky to be alive. Clara's legs gave way. She collapsed into a chair, sobbing. All the anger, the distance, the pride, none of it mattered anymore. She sat by his bedside all night, holding his hand and whispering through tears, "Please wake up. I'm sorry, Michael. I was stupid, lonely, but I never stopped loving you." Her voice cracked as she said the words she should have said months ago. "You were right there, and I looked somewhere else. Please, just come back to me." By morning, His fingers moved slightly. Her heart jumped. When he opened his eyes, his voice was weak. "Why are you crying?" She smiled through her tears. "Because I thought I lost you." He looked at her for a long moment, his eyes heavy, full of questions and pain. "Clara, why?" She couldn't answer. Instead, she buried her face in his chest. "Because I forgot who we were," she whispered. "But I remember now. Please let me fix this." Michael didn't reply immediately. He simply closed his eyes, exhausted, and whispered, "Then show me." That was the moment the truth finally broke her, not his words, but his forgiveness. It hurt more than anger ever could. Days passed. He recovered slowly. She stayed by his side, bringing food, adjusting his pillow, doing everything she could to make him comfortable. One night, as they sat quietly in his hospital room, Michael said, "Do you love him?" Clara shook her head. "No. I loved how he made me feel when I stopped feeling loved by you." Michael looked away. "And now? Now I know that love isn't about being perfect," she said softly. "It's about choosing someone, even when it's hard." Tears filled his eyes, and for the first time in months, he reached out and held her hand. "Then let's start over," he whispered. In that hospital room, between broken hearts and second chances, they learned the hardest truth of love, that sometimes you must almost lose everything to remember its worth. The weeks after Michael's recovery were quiet. Not the heavy silence of anger, but the kind that carries both hurt and hope. They decided to attend marriage counseling. At first, the sessions were awkward, tense. The counselor asked questions that made Clara's stomach twist. "When did you first start feeling unseen? What were you looking for that you couldn't find at home?" Clara's answers came slowly, with tears. "I wasn't looking for someone new. I just wanted to feel chosen again." Michael listened, his hands clenched together. When it was his turn, he spoke softly. "I thought providing was enough. I didn't realize I stopped being present." That moment broke something and healed something too. They started small. Dinner together without phones. Morning walks on weekends. Shared laughter that felt unfamiliar but real. Clara deleted Ethan's number the day she returned home. But deep inside, she knew there was one more thing left to do, closure. So one Saturday, she met Ethan at a cafe. He looked the same, confident, charming, but now she saw something different in his eyes. Not love. Just a reflection of what once was. "You look better," he said. She smiled faintly. "I feel better." There was an awkward pause. "So, you and Michael?" he asked. She nodded. "We're working on it." Ethan leaned back, a faint smirk hiding his disappointment. "You sure that's what you want?" She met his gaze steadily. "Yes. I made a mistake, Ethan. You didn't save me. You just reminded me of what I almost lost." He exhaled, half smiling. "Then I guess this is goodbye." "It has to be," she said softly. They shook hands, no hugs, no tears, just peace. When she returned home, Michael was cooking dinner. The smell of grilled chicken filled the air. He turned and smiled, a real, gentle smile. "You're home early." She walked up behind him and wrapped her arms around his waist. "I met Ethan today," she whispered. He froze for a second but didn't pull away. "And? It's over. For good." He turned, looked into her eyes, and nodded. "Thank you for being honest." They ate dinner quietly, but the silence was different this time, soft, safe, healing. Later that night, they sat on the porch under the stars, fingers intertwined. "You think we'll be okay?" Clara asked. Michael smiled. "We already are. We just forgot how to find each other." For the first time in a long time, she believed him. Love doesn't always need grand gestures. Sometimes, it just needs two people brave enough to rebuild from the ruins, one honest word, one small touch, one forgiven mistake at a time. Love isn't lost in one big moment. It fades quietly in the missed conversations, the tired excuses, the "I'm busy" that becomes a habit. Clara didn't fall for Ethan because she stopped loving Michael. She fell because she stopped feeling loved by him. And sometimes, that's how it happens, not with betrayal, but with emptiness. But in the end, she learned that the real danger wasn't Ethan's charm. It was her silence. Because when you stop talking to the one who loves you, someone else will listen. Forgiveness wasn't easy for them. It wasn't a single "I'm sorry" or a romantic dinner that fixed everything. It was the everyday effort to choose each other again, despite the scars. Michael learned too that love needs more than loyalty, it needs presence. You can be faithful and still lose someone if you stop showing up in the small ways. They both realized something powerful. Love doesn't survive because people never hurt each other. It survives because they decide to heal together. So, if you're listening to this and you've ever been tempted to go back to your past, remember, sometimes the spark you're chasing is only a distraction from the fire you stopped tending at home. And if you've been hurt, remember, forgiveness isn't weakness. It's the courage to rebuild what's worth keeping. If you've watched till the end, tell me, have you ever almost lost someone you truly loved? Love isn't perfect. It's messy, fragile, and sometimes painful. But when two people are brave enough to admit their mistakes, forgiveness can become the most beautiful kind of love story. Clara and Michael's journey wasn't about betrayal, it was about rediscovery. It showed that sometimes, the person you've been looking for has been right beside you all along, waiting for you to look back. Speech balloon. So tell me in the comments. Do you believe a relationship can survive emotional cheating? Or once the trust is broken, is love never the same again? Red heart # if you love stories that speak to the heart, stories of love, forgiveness, and second chances, make sure you like, share, and follow for more true, emotional stories that touch the soul. Headphone, because sometimes, it's not just a story. It's a reminder of what love really means.